Hey guys, so full disclosure, but when I saw the leaked spoiler images for this chapter, my first initial and immediate thought was, is Mashima seriously going to kill Rebecca so soon after what he did to Witch? And I had kind of carried that fear with me, like going into this chapter. Thankfully, I ended up breathing a sigh of relief. That's not actually what happened. But at the same time, in some ways, the reality of what happened is even worse by the fact that we learned that no matter that Rebecca ever since ever like Rebecca has tried ever for 2 days now to in order to rewrite these whole events, and for us to learn that no matter how hard she's tried, that this is one event in history Rebecca cannot change with her powers. That is just in some ways soul crushing, but at the same time all I have to say is thank you, Mashima. Thank you for allowing all this to stick, all this to matter, and just really giving these characters the time to just kind of like just have just to sit in the moment and realize and realize how and realize their failure and what they need to do to move forward, like from just knowing that there are events that are beyond their control to change. And again, I love how this shows there truly are some things that Rebecca cannot fix with her powers. For as strong as they are, there are just some points in history that cannot be changed. And although I am a bit surprised Mashima ultimately chose to forgo Rebecca awakening her overdrive in this arc, ultimately I am still happy he did, because this shows that there are some things you that just can't that you only have to learn from in order to change the future, and that you cannot change in the present. Now, with that said, let's talk about a theory that's been floating around as of late, but definitely seems to be reinforced through Herman and Ivory's conversation, which is the idea that all the Starshines will die by the end of the series, or not even by the end of the series, but quite possibly even before then. When at this point, before then, which at this point is very likely within the realm of possibility. However, that if that is indeed the case, and that Hermit and Ivory are set on the chopping block, like they are going to die at some point, then there's one key thing I hope Mashima is planning to do, and something I kind of need him to do almost. And it goes off my train of thought from last week's review, which is we need the legacy of the fallen Starshines to carry on to those that remain. So in the same way that Homura took up Valkyrie's mantle, we need someone like Pino to take up Witch's, and if Hermit dies, then maybe like Weiss should be the one to carry hers, and so on and so forth, and a new sort of Demon King Starshines to rise from that. And because to me, like, it's one of those things where not only has it been built, it's not only been built up but up to us by Mashima himself, that the Starshines are still kind of a necessity to navigating the cosmos and galaxy of this world. But when you look back on the series and the very simple conversations between these characters, like the ones between Weiss and Hermit as example, Mashima is building the camaraderie, obviously, but in context of current events, and you compare and you look at those conversations again, there is almost this idea you could argue that Mashima is kind of using these moments to set up for certain characters to become successors for the Starshines. Like, I can't help but not wonder if that's what Mashima's doing, because as just a reminder, Ziggy isn't the only threat, but also his new followers, the Dark Stars, are still as well, and you need a counterforce in order to combat that. And I guess in some ways it doesn't necessarily, like, the Starshines aren't necessary in order to combat them, but it would combat them necessarily. But you pretty much do need, like, you do need a counterforce in order to stop both the Dark Stars and Ziggy at this point. Speaking of Ziggy, though, let's talk about him, because we see him share a brief conversation with Elsie about the idea that Shiki ultimately made the wrong choice, and she herself did as well by not capitalizing on the chance to kill him. And because of that, this world, World 31, will see humanity wiped out. And to me, this says two things. The first, and most obvious, is that the future Rebecca had a glimpse of with her power is this world's future, and that in one way or another, it is going to happen, regardless of whatever course Shiki and others take to try and change the outcome. Except now, granted, I think the way Ziggy talks about this whole thing about killing him, I think that really is the only. From the way he talks, that seems to be the only one outcome in order to change this future. All roads right now begin and end with Ziggy, and that includes being the only way to truly stop that future from happening is to kill him. Like I kind of toyed around with the idea that last chapter that Ziggy might in fact die, but this one, to me, this chapter all confirms there's only one linear path that can prevent humanity's extermination, which is Ziggy's death. Like, there's no other course, no other way to prevent this from happening other than to kill him. And I think, and even though Shiki won't want to do that, I think it is leading to that point where Shiki is going to have to face the reality that in order to save humanity, he's going to have to kill his grandfather. He's going to, and I guess in some ways take up the mantle of the new Demon King or something like that. I don't know. Now, like, there's no way to prevent that from happening. That from happening. Like, it almost needs to happen now, and which in itself, just looking at that conversation between Ziggy and Elsie and how Ziggy just kind of laughs off everything Elsie says about how he saved her, he gave her a home, all that stuff. It's one of those conversations that makes me say that Ziggy almost seems almost self-aware of the fact that he's too far gone and is just looking for someone to kill him now. Like, it doesn't matter who he is, he's looking for a place to die now. And I'd really like to know the importance of World 31 and Rebecca's role moving forward in this, because the way Ziggy worded his warning seems to indicate that World 31 is where it basically everything comes to an end, and that seems to the way it's worded, that seems to indicate Rebecca's catalytic powers won't work anymore, and not necessarily in the sense where she can't use them, but just her. Even if Rebecca managed to change from world to world to world to world, from World 32, World 33, World 34, her powers can't. She can do all that fine, but her powers can't change the outcome of the war that's coming between man and machine. And considering, and at that point, they're going to have to really work hard in order to prevent humanity's extinction. And considering we didn't get Rebecca's overdrive yet, I think this whole human-machine war that's coming on the horizon, I think there will be a point during that war that will be the linchpin. I think that will be the linchpin in order for her overdrive to awaken. Because we know any overdrive Rebecca has will be OP as fuck. So I think Mashima is saving it for this big war that is coming in order to make it feel important. Like, when you look back on everything that's been said about Rebecca and her power, it's said that her power is the one that will change the future. And I think that war is going to be the linchpin for her to awaken her overdrive, and for her to truly truly come into that role of being the one to save it all, I think. And yeah, honestly, aside from that, the pacing of this chapter as a whole was very quick, but I do like how it did ultimately provide a nice reprieve for not only our heroes to have that moment of reflection, but also a brief moment of just celebration for humanity, after this long fought battle. And just in that brief moment of celebration, it felt like a scene out of the end to Return of the Jedi, where everyone was celebrating that, with mind you, with that undercurrent that things are going to get worse from here. And that is and that everything is only like a brief reprieval, because Mashima is definitely promising mass destruction and genocide, and honestly, after what he put us through with this arc, I have no qualms in believing he's gonna deliver. Like Mashima proved, he's basically all in on just whatever the fuck he's planning. Like he's pretty much, he's got an idea, he's got a plan, and he's saying, I'm I'm basically all in on this. You're not gonna, you will be crushed by the end of this series, I think. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. Enjoy the video, like, comment, subscribe. I'm on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of MA, signing off. Later, everyone.